Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastyatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnupad Puraman Supariprad Vikacharja Ashtottara Satashri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sakho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kunigiri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Tham Ki Jai Navadip Tham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamana Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Well, welcome to all. Om Jnana Timirantasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Dadhati Shapadantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Jatapada Kamalang Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Shvagrasatam Sahagana Raganatan Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Shahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenavanto Jagatpate Gope Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kolpatarubhyascha Kripasindho Pyevacha Tita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Nama Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you all for coming. Special welcome to Meena Dasi and to Haridas also, who's been with us for some days. Very nice to have your company, and Braja Bihari Prabhu and everyone. To have your videos on, no pressure, you don't have to, but if you like, you are welcome. Hey, Braja Bihari. Jai. And I wonder what, and Advaita Charja's appearance day is today. Hari Hari Bo. And what topics, thoughts, questions are on our minds today, I wonder.
I had something that perhaps you will, choose as you so desire to brush aside in deference to something else. But I was wondering, just on the point of curiosity, and because we're all your faithful Zoom followers, how you yourself observe Shri Advaita Acharya's appearance day. Do you do anything special?
Yeah, I went to the dentist. With Panchatattva Prabhu. So it's because it's Advaita Acharya's appearance day, I wanted to be with the Panchatattva. So he drove me to Ocala, where I got the association of Gaura Shakti. So I was really in, very close to to Panchatattva and the Gauranga Mahaprabhu and so on. That's what I did today. And we also listened to there are very nice recordings by, oh, come on, Damodar Pandit from New Vrindavan. He's recorded cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam and all of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And so we were listening to the glories of Advaita Acharya read by Damodar Pandit from Chaitanya Charitamrita. So that was very, very nice.
I don't think it's Pandit. I think it's just Damodar.
Damodar, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a Damodar Pandit also. He's someone else.
Yeah. I used to go on Sangartham with him for years. Yeah.
Ah.
So,
So I find his readings quite pleasant to listen to and enlightening. You know, sometimes you don't want to look at the screen for a minute more, but you can listen very nicely.
Yeah, he's a real deal.
Yeah, he reads very nicely. And they're free downloads. What is it? I've forgotten the URL. Tulsidas Prabhu is sort of behind the project at New Vrindavan. Very nice readings.
Yes, that's Gopala Supriya's husband.
Yeah. And with a little work, we could probably, if someone wants to Google it and find it, and post it, you can. Yes.
Thank you for that.
And then after we were listening together, then I kept listening to Damodar's readings. I have a question. Yes, go ahead, Prajabihari Prabhu.
All right. Maybe it's a good sign that I can't understand this. I don't understand Brahman very well. And I was reading today Nectar of Devotion, chapter 15, about spontaneous devotional service. And there, it makes that distinction about where it says that Kamsa and Shishupal had the same destination as the gopis and Narada, etc. And then Srila Prabhupada writes that, well, not exactly the same, that they attain the Brahman effulgence. And also in the 8th chapter of the Gita, right, there's at the end of the 8th chapter of the Gita, there's that discussion about, who returns to the material world, who, go at when the sun is in the northern direction, et cetera, et cetera. But then we also hear Arura Krishna Parampadam Tata, right, the 10th canto verse that pretty much they don't last in Brahman, it seems. And Buri Jampu tells the story of being with Srila Prabhupada in 1969 in New Vrindavan, and he was giving a class, and the devotees asked the question about Mayavadis, and he gave some answer. And they went to see Prabhupada, and he didn't realize Prabhupada was listening to the class. He was in the loft above. And so he said, so they asked you the question, he said to Buri Jampu. And Buri Jampu said, Prabhupada, do all Mayavadis have to fall down? And he said, yes. And Buri Jampu said, why? And Prabhupada said, because they get lonely. Such an amazing answer for people who really didn't have much philosophical understanding in those days. So, do they attain Brahman? Do they have to come back again and open hospitals? I mean, like I said, maybe it's good I don't understand Brahman, but that's my question.
Well, of course, our headline text is Vadantitas Tattvam Yaj Jnanam Advayam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavaniti Shabdyate. The Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan are Advaita Gyan. They're the same entity. They're the same entity, but seen from 3 different angles. Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavan, by the devotees seen as Bhagavan, by the yogis seen as Paramatma, and by the Gyanis seen as the impersonal Brahma. And Prabhupada gives the several examples. The example of the mountain seen from a distance, it's just sort of a haze. And then you get closer and you see that that it's a mountain and there are certain features. And then if you go up close, you'll see all the chipmunks and the oak trees and the trees and so on. So, and there are similar examples of other things seen from three different degrees of proximity. So the Brahma is also Krishna, but not in his fullest feature. Not in his fullest feature. And in a feature really uncongenial for, well, totally unsuitable for any relationship, because relationship means there has to be you and the person to whom you're related, and then there can be a relationship. So there's no relationships, and therefore, as Prabhupada said, one gets lonely. Because the living beings constitutionally want a relationship. But when we get frustrated in the material world with our relationships, we say, oh, forget this individuality thing. It's just a source of suffering and pain. So we throw the baby out with the bathwater. We want to obliterate individuality altogether. Just see what else. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur someplace makes the comment, maybe it's in his Brahma Samhita commentary, that the living entities who are merged in the brahmajyoti hold their individuality in abeyance. Right? It's like artificial. It's like a kid, you tell him to be good. He can hold his mischievous nature in abeyance, but it's unnatural. So something like that. Does that go far enough?
I was thinking about whether, okay, so abeyance, that helps. Yes. Yeah.
I just wanted to add to your question and maybe fluff it out some, but what are the engagements for the senses in the Brahmajyoti?
There are no engagements for the senses in the Brahmajyoti.
And what do you do?
There's no doing. Because in the Brahmajyoti, merging means to obliterate the subject-object distinction. It's called Advaitavad, no twoness. We will only want oneness. So if there's only oneness, you can't have senses that facilitate seeing. That's all out. That's all out by definition.
But you're free of suffering, though. Yes.
Yes.
Like no pain and no bad relationships.
Yeah, that's that. Prabhupada said, it's like, go ahead.
I'm sorry. If the subject-object distinction disappears, then how do you get lonely?
Well, I think Prabhupada's being figurative there, but.
Well, I mean, but still, how does one get the idea that they don't want to be in the Brahmajyoti anymore and fall down and go and open a hospital?
Well, that oneness sort of, what's the word, wears off, or.
I was just going to say wears off.
Yeah, the twoness keeps reasserting itself.
It gets old. Yeah, that's the thing. You're not suffering. I mean, this is in literature all the time. People who may not be suffering, they get tremendously bored, and then they'll look for some trouble just so that they're not experiencing nothing anymore. They'd rather have trouble than nothing.
Yeah.
Kendra Prabhu, isn't that one of your songs? The subject and the object are one and the same.
That was actually written by Ravindra Swarup Prabhu.
I think I'm going to merge.
Yeah, exactly. So Maharaj, what about, but Paramatma is not in the spiritual world, correct?
Correct.
So is Brahman in the spiritual world?
Brahman is we hear of it as the effulgence of the spiritual world. the Paramatma is present in person as Krishna. So there's no need. We gave that example the other day of the Prabhupada gave it of the temporary police force. Like when there's a Kumbh Mela, there's a whole police installation at the Kumbh Mela, huge arrangements. And then when the Kumbh Mela is over, then that police force just merges back into the regular police.
Oh, that's
So,
lovely. That's nice.
Yeah. So Prabhupada gave that example. The Paramatma is needed in the material world, but in the spiritual world, there's no need. The Paramatma is there in person.
Maharaj?
Ma?
I sometimes have a hard time. It's a sort of a flickering comprehension of the Paramatma. But just now, an idea that popped into my head, would it be safe to say that Paramatma is like a reflection? In other words, when you have the sun in the sky and you have the many water pots and the sun is reflected in all of them. And so you can't really interact with those reflections in the water pot, but it's still the image of the sun, but it's not quite the same thing. I'm guessing that, because Krishna's Paramatma is still Krishna, but it's not an interactive manifestation. Is that a good way of thinking of it?
I'm not quite sure, because like Prabhupada sometimes says, super soul is guiding you from within.
Right.
So there's some interactivity there.
Or a hologram, or a video image, like I'm interacting with you via video, but it's not you.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen that example in Shastra, but
Yeah.
the idea is that there's not the full range of reciprocation that you get with the personality of Godhead. You get there's apparently some reciprocation, but not, you don't have the same personal dealings that you find with Krishna.
I had an additional question about Brahma nefalgence, brahmajyoti. It would seem, since that effulgence is itself all pervading throughout the spiritual world, that there would be, and since everything in the spiritual world is conscious, it would almost seem that if living entities merge into that brahmajyoti, then there would be more living entities in the brahmajyoti than anywhere else.
Yeah, I suppose one could get that idea. I've never seen that stated. And then it's like, how many living entities does it take to make a quanta of brahmajyoti light? I don't, a quantum of brahmajyoti light, I don't really know. So, and besides, we're talking about unlimited when we get to the spiritual world. So everything's intimate, intimate also, but infinite.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But it does appear from the descriptions that there are living beings merged into the brahmajyoti. That's what Gop Kumar discovered when he almost merged.
I guess for me, the issue is I have to constantly remind myself that because we're talking about Krishna, he is unlimited, and I have to expand my consciousness to accommodate that fact.
Yes, that we have to do that, don't we? Yes, Tulsi Priya.
Would one perhaps say, like, is there brahmajyoti separate from the living entities, or is the brahmajyoti constituted of living entities?
It seems that in some places we get the idea that it's constituted of living entities. Some places Prabhupada uses language to that effect. Whether there's, light apart from, does every living entity have is every light correspond to a living entity? Is there extra light in the mix that the living entities are merged into? That question, I don't know.
I got a little light and I'm going to let it shine.
Yes. Okay, hand is there.
Hare Krishna Maharaj Dandavats.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. On this note, I think I was always curious. When you had mentioned that Paramatma is guiding from within, I never understood what that really meant, because from my understanding, Paramatma is completely neutral. He's just a witnesser and does not get involved in one sense, does not feel for the feeling that the entities are feeling, though he is completely aware. So when you say guiding, does that mean that the only way I can reconcile it is that Parma is reminding you to fulfill your desires because he's also the sanctioner of karma? Is that what you mean? And
He's
then
also what?
He's the one who sanctions karma. So he's reminding you that you want to fulfill a desire, you have the karma for it. I was just asking, I'm not sure.
Krishna says, I give memory, I give knowledge, I give intelligence. So that's there. Sarvasyas Chaham Priti Sandavishta. But I'm situated in everyone's heart. From me come knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness.
You almost forgot about forgetfulness.
Yeah. Thank you, Paramatma. He almost blew.
So does that mean when one says Paramatma is Chaita Guru, is that only from the knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness?
Excuse me, your connection isn't 100% clear. It's a
Oh,
little
sure. So when they say Paramatma is Chaita Guru, does that mean he is guru only in reference to the knowledge, forgetfulness, and remembrance?
What else does a guru do other than knowledge, remembrance? I mean, what else did you have in mind for the Paramatma?
So
he oversees, he's described as Upadrashtanu Mantacha, overseer and permitter. He's described as the source of knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. What else did you have in mind there?
Sure. So when certain devotees,
you know, the yogi, Dhyana Vastata Tadgatena Manasa Pashantiyam Yogino, the yogis by their yoga practice see the Paramatma. That makes a difference. You know, they see him and they become attracted and absorbed in meditation on the Paramatma.
So I was referring to, there's some devotees mentioned just even when you have a conscience, like telling you not to do something, don't rob a bank, or if someone were to, this is a gross example, but someone had mentioned,
whoa, Tina, just slow down, please. Again,
sure,
we're not on the greatest hi-fi connections, Wi-Fi, but not hi-fi. So if you slow down, then I can follow better.
I'm sorry. Yes. So some mention that when you hear your conscience not to do something bad, that is God speaking to you. I'm sorry, Simon Haas wrote in his book, The Dark Night of the Yoga and the Dark Night of the Soul, he gives an anecdote where he was flying, and maybe it was in India, and somehow he got into this car and he had this feeling that they were going to try to kill him. So he heard this voice in his head saying, at the next light, jump out, take your luggage, and just run. And he later finds out when he goes to the airport, reports it, that there was this band of horrible bandits that were killing travelers, especially Western travelers. And he had said, wow, that was God saving my life. And he, quote unquote, spoke to me. So if Paramatma is completely neutral, then that conscience, or the one that told, for that little voice in the head, is that Krishna speaking then, or is it Paramatma? Or what asks? Yes. Who is that conscience? Yes.
Who is that voice in your head? First thing is Paramatma or Krishna, they're the same. They're just, Paramatma is a feature of Krishna. As far as the voice in our head, it's a little unsure. Sometimes we may say that it's, you know, inspiration from God, or one is prompted by God. Certainly when the great acharyas get some, you know, direction from within, that's could be said to be, we'd certainly say that that was the Lord in the heart. And there's a purport in the second canto where Prabhupada refers to the Paramatma as the form direction of the Lord. I think that's just been posted in the chat box, in fact. Prabhupada sort of takes you through a logical process by which to realize the presence of the Paramatma. One can perceive that intelligence is the form direction of the Paramatma plenary portion. So finally, all knowledge, remembrance, and intelligence come from God. Even the thief, if he's being told now's the time to break into the bank, you know, that's also God speaking to him, although not perhaps with the most exalted message. But one has to be careful about this, hearing voices, you know. It may sometimes be Paramatma, it may sometimes be the mad mind, it may sometimes be some subtle entity, some malevolent subtle entity. There are all sorts. There was one serial killer who, when apprehended, was, you know, told the police that his dog was like broadcasting messages to him, and he was hearing these messages: kill this one, kill that one. So, you know, there's all sorts of weird things that can happen in the mind. Therefore, there's a purport in Bhagavad Gita, as it is, where Prabhupada says that everything the devotee does is perfect because Krishna guides, because he's guided from within by the super soul or the personality of God, that everything he does is prompted from within. And Prabhupada added, he penned in on the galley proof and confirmed by the bona fide spiritual master. So that's our test, you know, in the probationary stage, the preliminary stage of devotional service. We can't quite be sure that what our heart is telling us or what the voice within tells us is in fact what we ought to be doing according to this desire. It may sometimes be something else. So, but when it's spiritual master, then it's Krishna. Otherwise, you're getting an inspiration, but it's the inspiration to do some rubbish, and you thought it was Krishna, and it was really Maya. So the spiritual master's direction as the external representative of the super soul is very much wanted especially in the practice stage of devotional service. In the mature stage, the devotee, you know, is directly seeing Krishna practically. The Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, that's a different level of existence. But in our level as practicing devotees, we check in with the spiritual master, with the sadhus. Is this, you know, what is Krishna speaking to me, or is Maya speaking to me?
Maharaj, I guess to clarify, thank you so much. So then, then Krishna will never directly interact with a jiva in a conditioned state. Is that, and that's what I'm gathering. And so
Sure, Krishna can react with jiva states. He kills them off. He gives them opportunity. He can deal with whoever he wants to deal with. Sure. Nityananda Prabhu and Chaitanya, they were dealing with lots of conditioned jivas. Krishna is not constrained. You can only deal with liberated souls. He can deal with conditioned souls too.
But then just to check, when most mention divine inspiration from within, that's most likely Paramatma, and not specifically Krishna, even though we don't want to limit Krishna can do anything.
Generally this matasmriti jnanam apohanam cha sarvasya chaha amriti sannivishto. The direction from within the heart is Krishna's deputed form as the super soul. Yes, Krishna himself, he doesn't waste his time on this stuff.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, Maharaj, because even the giving knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness, if this person's not a devotee, isn't it still pretty much samoham sarva bhuteshu? I'm just like, you know, dishing it out according to what you deserve and desire.
Yeah.
Because I was also thinking, those beginning verses from like 4 to 10 in the 9th chapter of the Gita, Krishna makes a pretty strong case for his aloofness.
Yeah.
In that chapter.
Yeah.
Quite a strong case.
But aloof, yes.
In the material world.
Yeah. I mean, finally, nothing to do with this material world.
Yeah.
The whole thing is just deputed down to the Purusha avatars. You deal with this.
Yeah.
Or I'll deal with this. I'll deal with this as I'll expand myself and deal with it. But I'm going to stay in Vrindavan and play on my flute and dance with the gopis and play with the cowherd boys. And, Paramekam Nagashchati never leaves Vrindavan. That's really home base. He expands himself as the Purusha avatars to deal with the cosmic manifestation, then to appear within the heart of everyone. He does it that way. Now, let me see. There were some chat box entries. Let me just catch up with them. Yeah, bhaktivedantavedic-library.com. That is the site I was thinking of. I'm pretty sure. I think that's pretty much right. And Damodar's, there are many books available there. Chaitanya Bhava says, Arjuna is called Gudakesh, one who has conquered sleep. But 6:15 through 17 talks about sleeping in moderation, not too much, not too little. What is exactly meant by conquering sleep by Arjuna? One old devotee, conquering sleep means not hutratam, not what is that? Come on, 6th chapter.
Yuktahara viharasya.
Not yashnatastu yogosti, nachaikantam anashnataha.
No, come on.
Yuktahara viharasya, yukta chestasya kamasu.
Yep, yukta swapnavabodhasya.
Yes, yeah, yoga bodh.
In eating and sleeping. So generally, that's conquering sleep. If you don't sleep too much, you don't sleep too little, then you're a conqueror of sleep. You're engaged in devotional service. So you're awake in Krishna consciousness. But for Arjuna, he was staying up at night and practicing in the dark and so on. So he was a super conqueror of sleep. That's a level beyond us. That's a level beyond us. But Arjuna was exceptional in that regard, that he could do without sleep. He'd rather shoot and practice than sleep. We can't imitate.
And Maharaj, on that point, I mean, this is like a big thing from, not a big thing, but because Prabhupada talks about anything over 6 hours is affected by the mode of ignorance in Bhagavad Gita. But then other places he'll say 6 to 7, and in one place even says 6 to 7, upmost 8. And when I was on Sankirtan, whoever drove the van had to get 8 hours sleep.
Yes.
Made sure they got 8 hours sleep.
Yes, very good. Just to be austere and dead is not advised. I heard that Tamal Krishna Maharaj asked, there's, by the way, Tulsi Priya, someone's waiting to get in, a number 1619. 619 sounds all right. That's New Jersey. I'll let him in. But you might send him a note saying he'll get in faster if he puts a name. Somehow my little, if I click on admit, it doesn't admit. You can deal with it. I heard someplace that Tamal Krishna Maharaj told Srila Prabhupada he couldn't do with 6 hours, and Prabhupada said, take more. So according to function on, someone may function on less, someone may function on more. Steady, regular, not more than you need, not less than you need. And the general target there is 6. So if you can do 5.5, good. If you can do 6.5, that's all right. Yeah. Sankarshan asks, I hope that's okay, Chaitanya Bhava. Sankarshan asks, good. Doesn't Sarvagata indicate that they're also manifested in the Brahmajyoti? Yeah, why not? Sarvagata, going everywhere. So the Brahmajyoti is also somewhere. Yeah, good point. Panchatattva says, so the knowledge of a musician or a scientist, etc., ultimately comes from the supersoul. Yeah, it all comes from the supersoul. How about the process of learning or education? The ability to learn comes from the supersoul. Everything comes from the supersoul. The ability to walk, the ability to hear, the ability to speak. Without the supersoul, our senses are dependent on his senses. In the verse where Sarvata Panipadam, taught everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes, and so on. Some of the commentators say that's because those senses are his senses. Our senses that are everywhere belong to him. They don't work without Krishna, or even without the demigods for that matter. It's not that even the super soul has to manage everything. A lot of this is deputed down to the demigods. You handle this stuff. Shabdake Parusham Yashu, the sound.
Talk about everything being connected.
Yeah. Ultimately, everything is dependent on the super soul, on Krishna. 1858, no conditioned soul actually knows what is to be done and not to be done. But a person who acts in Krishna consciousness is free to act because everything is prompted by Krishna from within and confirmed by the spiritual master, right? Prabhupada personally thought it wise to pen that in, confirmed by the spiritual master. A devotee Pushta Krishna wrote a book about how Krishna appeared to him when, as a newbie to devotional service, Krishna Pushta was ready to bloop. Krishna's appearing to him changed his mind. The book is God is Not Dead. Yes. Late Krishna, Pushta Krishna Prabhu. The book is available on Amazon. I think it's important, Tulsi Priya says, to stress that you don't artificially get less than you need. Less sleep, yes. Now I have a question. This is a practical question, not a philosophical question. My book, Vanity Karma, is up for reprinting, and we're talking about changing the title. There's some discussion by Sheshika Prabhu and his team, and a little professional consultation. The general thought is that Vanity Karma is quite opaque. You wouldn't know whether it's about a dressing table or you know, the old meaning of vanity or whatever. So we're looking at a new title, and it's in your chat box, Searching for Meaning, Wisdom from Ecclesiastes and the Bhagavad Gita. I'm interested in how that strikes you. We also have an alternative subtitle. Searching for Meaning, Wisdom from Krishna's Song and the Biblical Sage.
I don't see it in the chat. Did you put it in the chat, Marge?
Yes.
Yes, it's right there.
Me to everyone in waiting room. I'm not sure what that means. Do not see, why is it everyone in waiting room?
Oh,
Well,
I
we're
don't
not
know why.
seeing it.
Oh, everyone in meeting. Oh my goodness. Okay. That's so weird. Not weird. I guess it's weird of me that I didn't notice it. Okay, to everyone. Yeah, it makes sense. You want to say something to everyone in the waiting room, like, hang on.
Now we see.
So now you see it. That's one title and subtitle. And there's an alternative version for which I can give you the rationale. The rationale for the second is that I found that people sort of trip over Ecclesiastes. They're not sure how to pronounce it. And also it may give the sense of having something to do with a church, which of course Ecclesiastes doesn't, but people who haven't read Ecclesiastes, which is probably most people, don't know that. So they might find it. Yes, you can suggest alternative titles. I don't know how much time we want to spend online here on YouTube brainstorming titles. Yeah, you can drop me a note. If you have any thoughts right away about the two subtitles, feel free to let me know, even right here and now. Otherwise, you can drop me a note. You have my, yeah, I had another title, How is Living Even Worth It? I liked that a lot, but there seemed to be a persistent sense that this was really bordering on nihilism, that it was so bleak. Then when you Google it, you find all these links to suicide hotlines and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Which is such a big thing now. Yeah.
So even though it really is the very much the theme of the book, there was always this persistent feeling like, ooh, this is maybe just too acidic, too bleak, too far down. So we were looking for something more open.
Well, I'm a little turned, I initially a little turned off by the word biblical, but then when you have sage after it, that for me, that piques my interest.
It rescues it.
Yeah. And these days, probably most people don't know what an Ecclesiastes, people don't read anything more than, CNN.com.
Yeah. Newcomers, devotees, it doesn't matter what the title is. Well, that's overstating it, but newcomers to spirituality, people that we might meet on Sankirtan, people who might be browsing on Amazon, looking for some sort of answers to such questions as what is the meaning of life and so on. People who are not way out there, who are not interested at all, and people who are also not, in our tight-in group, but someone who's more on the edge. And what are your three little icons? I can't tell what they are, Tina. Oh, I see. They're laughing emojis. Okay. They're very small on my screen. Okay, and Sankarshan likes the second. Krishna's song seems a little weak if they don't know who he is or don't think too highly of wisdom from songs. Okay. Mush likes the first one. Okay. Gut reaction. Tina likes the first one. But we're devotees. Yeah, that's the problem. I don't like anything with searching for meaning. I don't like books. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. I like the second one. Okay, you might, so if you'd like to sort of...
Well, this didn't help much, did it, Maharaj? We're all over the place.
Yeah, this is very good. So if anyone would like to drop me a message, especially sort of, thinking about it and outlining your thoughts, just a little bit, you don't have to write a dissertation, but you are most welcome. That is, sleep on it, and if you come up with something, including new titles entirely or new subtitles. Okay, we still have almost 15 minutes. Yes, Kamalini.
Is it all right if I go back to our Paramatma topic? Because I heard, like in the second canto, it describes the Paramatma and what he looks like and where he's situated. But I heard also, although the language doesn't sound that pleasing, but the devotee kicks out the Paramatma and installs in their heart their Ishtadev, like primarily Sham Sundar, or the deity whom they are worshiping, and they take direction, and the same as what you would do with the Paramatma with that form, with the 4 arms. And they consult or remember, meditate upon their Ishtadev, their favorite form of the Lord. I saw it in writing 2 times.
Yeah, I don't recall having seen kicks out anywhere.
Well, Jayadvaita Swami wrote that.
Uh-huh. Well, maybe he has a source for that, but certainly that idea is there, that one goes on, that where the yogi would have the Paramatma in his heart, the devotee focuses on the personality of Godhead.
Mhm.
And in the form, and even it's said that Krishna appears in the heart in the form on which the devotee always meditates.
Mm.
There's a verse like that.
Mhm. I think everyone's familiar with the late morning program, interviews by Namras Prabhu.
The late morning program, interviews by Nam Ras.
Yeah, you're not familiar?
No.
He should interview you every, I believe it's every Sunday morning. He has a interview program going on. He chooses usually one guest. So last week he interviewed Garuda Prabhu on controversies in Srila Prabhupada's books. Kind of
On
like
what in Prabhupada's books?
controversial topics, or topics that some people suggested should be removed from the books, or there should be some kind of footnotes to the books, like that. But it was like over 2 hours long.
Mhm.
And very good. And then they asked next time he could do an interview about changes to the books. That's next. But anyway, it was like I saw. Oh yeah, it brings me to another topic. Like when I for most of the years, like most of the people that are bringing up these issues, they're younger, much younger. Like not, I don't even think many older devotees listen to the program. But I accepted everything that I read in Prabhupada's books, like no, not even a slight like question or doubt. It was just like everything's like far out, like far out, that all these personalities came out of the ocean of milk. And like, I mean, they're not even dripping with milk all over them. And I mean, I didn't think anything logically, but it seems like the younger generation, perhaps they have more discriminatory kind of consciousness, not sure. But what, like now I question, how can that be? Like logically, I question a lot of what I read, whereas before you could say I suspended my intelligence and just accepted everything on face value and just as being very interesting. But you know what I mean? I think that's, is it faith, or what is that? And of course, these topics, which you are very much aware of in Prabhupada's books, some are, they said, sexist and racist, and that was those were the main topics of contention. And, I appreciate that they're reading the books, the young people, because a lot don't. And, they are noticing these things. So, I mean, we could go item by item, but what about that suspension of intelligence, you could say?
Yeah, I don't know that it's suspension of intelligence as application of intelligence in a certain way. when, just like Arjun, Karpanya dosho Karpanya dosho patasvabhava.
It wasn't living room.
That I've thought this out to the best of my, and I'm bewildered. I can't solve this on my own. So I surrender. Shishyaste sadimam tvam prapanya. My intelligence has its limits. I've tried to understand things to the best of my ability, but I've reached my limits. So you please instruct me. Is that that doesn't mean giving up one's intelligence? Is intelligent. That is intelligent. To admit, I don't know. How intelligent is it to think, well, I can figure out everything, I understand everything. I've been bewildered. I tried A, I tried B, I was confused, I'm still confused, but I'll get it. No, why not ask someone who knows? That's intelligent. Why keep guessing? So in third canto, it said that doubt is a function of intelligence. So that is there. But it's also said, what is that? That for the doubting soul, there's happiness neither in this life nor the next. What is that verse? Samshayatmanaha.
It's 4
Samshayatma vinashyati.
number of it.
Mm-hmm.
440 Gita.
Sorry?
Bhagavad Gita 440, I believe.
440.
Agyascha shradnanascha samshayatma vinashati.
Samshayatma vinashati. Yeah. There it is. Agyascha shraddhanascha. Samshayatma vinashati. Nayam lokosti naparo nusukam. Samshayatma. For the doubting soul, there's happiness neither in this life nor the next. He goes to destruction. Samshayatma vinashati. So faith is also required, especially if we want to understand that which is beyond no matter how you slice it, beyond the purview of the mind and senses. You have to go to authority. There's no other way for understanding. So to go on doubting and doubting and doubting, that will mess us up. And to be just totally credulous, that'll, then you'll accept some fool and rascal and not have any intelligence. So, but I'm always impressed by the Goswamis. They find these contradictions, and then they get into them. They research them and they say, what is this? How is it this? And then in the Brahmanda Purana it said, in the Vishnu Dhammotar it said, they get to the bottom of it, or they find a reasonable harmonization. They don't say, well, no, it's Sanatana. They explore these questions and they get pleasure from these questions. They raise these doubts and then they answer them.
Mm.
So it's not that we just have to say, well, I guess, sort of bite our tongues, but there's a certain, what would you say, place where we say, well, what do I know? And let me, I'll understand it at some future point. What is that? It's St. Augustine. I believe in order that I may understand. Whereas the empiric process is the other way. First, I understand something, then I believe something. But he turns it around. I believe in order that I may understand. So there's a wisdom to that by having faith, one gains entrance to truths that are otherwise inaccessible. And of course, the classic example is, you want to know who your father is, you have to have some trust in your mother, otherwise you won't know. So acceptance of authority is finally one important, source of knowledge, or the most important source of knowledge. Good topic to expand on in the future Istagosthi. Okay, so we can, whatever topics, but I hope it's not, well, anyway, yeah, whatever you'd like to expand on. We have, in theory, an unlimited number of Istagosthis, so bring up your questions, and we have learned persons on this, at this meeting, who can bring their thoughts to bear. I'm not the only one. I've been doing a lot of talking. But do bring up doubts and questions. That's fine. Panchatattva says sometimes there's a kind of cherry picking of things we disapprove. For example, I once heard that a lady was taking exception to 932, woman as lower birth. The devotee responded that she hadn't understood the previous chapters of Bhagavad Gita. Well, yeah, if we want to, that's one thing we can just say in brief, is that if we want to, we can look for things that are small points and blow them up. So, I'll stay in this material world and go on with sense gratification and conditioned life because Prabhupada said something I disagree with about democracy or about women or about this or about that. There's something like missing the point. Yeah, something about missing the point. One has to, first of all, catch up the essence of what Prabhupada is teaching. If you want to pick it as grammar, or you want to pick it as his statement about this or about that, you lose the whole thing. It's like looking at the moon and saying, yeah, but look at those spots. You may think it's beautiful. Poets may go on and on about haven't they seen those spots? Just look at the ugly spots on the moon. If that's what you're looking for, that's what you'll see. And others will see the beauty of the moon, the cooling rays of the moon, because that's what you want to focus on. So one needs to be careful about placing oneself in the sort of self-appointed role of grand critic, in which one is so alert for contradictions or things that we could question, that you lose the essence. You lose the main message. It's like we're trying to communicate here, and we just concentrate on the static in the Zoom channel or something, and we don't listen to what people are saying or give it our best shot. So somehow one should try to catch up the essence of Bhagavad Gita, the essence of Prabhupada's teachings, the siddhantas, conclusions that Prabhupada's teaching us. Otherwise, if we get caught up in, I don't like what he said about Germans, or I don't like what he said about samosas, or I don't like what he said about this, or I don't like what he said about that, we'll lose it. We'll lose it. And then what will you do? What will you do? You'll go by your own mind, your own imperfect senses, your own imperfect mind, your own spiritual power. What will you do? So if you have something better, bring your something better. But otherwise, just to set ourselves up as critic and therefore wind up with nothing. It's like food. Someone offered, you say, yeah, but look at, it's got mustard seeds. I don't like mustard seeds. Then someone says, well, what about this? No, it's got coriander. I don't like coriander. Well, what about this? No, it's got tomatoes. I don't like tomatoes. Then, well, what about this? And you go on, at the end of the day, you starve because everything has some fault in it. If you want, you'll find a fault everywhere, and then you can starve.
We've had the experience catering, like we did a catering for 10 years every summer for a yoga group, and there were so many restrictions. Somebody doesn't eat nightshade, someone can't eat hing, someone's gluten-free, vegan, gluten-free and vegan, and we had to make all these separate dishes for catering to certain individuals. Yeah, it gets out of hand.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I hope this has been helpful. I have to go also. We're at 9 o'clock and we don't want to, at 8 o'clock, and we don't want to extend and extend. Thank you all very much for your company. If you do have thoughts about book titles, you can drop me a note. I think everyone has my email. And we look forward to seeing you again the soonest. Thank you. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Jai Jai.
Thank you, Maharaj. Haribol.
Haribol.
We're going to think about titles.
Hare Krishna.
So that
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.